Hi, everyone. In this episode, we are going to talk about one of the wildest things I've ever manifested. I actually can't even believe these words are leaving my mouth. How I became a sponsored surfer in my 40s. Do I surf like Kelly Slater? Absolutely not. In fact, I started surfing at 41 during COVID, so not even close. So, why does a brand new, gorgeous, custom shaped surfboard show up at my door every few months? The answer will blow your mind. But first, I want to welcome all the new peeps on here because this is the first episode I'm providing on podcast platforms. And I know that each platform brings new visitors, so thank you for being here. And for all my OGs who's been with me for years on Instagram at TrulyJulieChang, and all my YouTube peeps at youtube.com/at TrulyJulieChang. I can't even talk. I really appreciate you guys showing me the evergreen support that I have felt all through the years. So thank you, thank you, thank you. To be able to make my own content is truly a privilege, and I realize all of this would be pointless unless you were here. So, again, muchas gracias. Okay, back to the headline: how I became a sponsored surfer in my 40s. For this story to make sense, we need to back into it with my brain tumor journey. So, back when I moved from New York to LA in 2011, I decided I'm going to try surfing. I mean, why else move 3,000 miles if you're not going to jump headfirst into California lifestyle, right? And in my opinion, there is nothing that screams California quite like surfing culture. Minor issue. It's only the hardest sport ever. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was so clueless to the sport that I would just go out whenever I felt like it. Never once considering this little thing called wave conditions or that, the ocean will do what she wants when she wants. Psst. Full confession, I don't even think I knew that the tide rose and fell multiple times throughout the day. And even if I was aware, I wouldn't even know what that meant. Like, is high tide good or is low tide good? For the surfers out there, if you are in the Venice area, mid-tide rising is best. But I digress. So one evening around 2012, I decide to go surfing by myself. It's 6 p.m., sunset, gorgeous time of day. I laugh because I got there and there was zero waves. I, in fact, felt like I was in a lake somewhere. And so I'm like, okay, it's okay. I'll just like have this moment of gratitude because it was like sorbet melting skies, cotton candy colors everywhere. And I just was like almost teary-eyed because I was brimming with so much gratitude. Here I am, new to California. I'm just pinching myself thinking like, how is this my life that I live so close to the beach and I'm just witnessing with all my working senses this marvelous thing called the ocean, right? It felt like a moment at church, like a spiritual moment. And unbeknownst to me, I look down and my surfboard isn't there anymore, which is so odd because I never undid my surf leash, right? Like, it was so still in the water that I just kept the leash on and I kind of was like, had it on my side and I'm admiring the sunset and who knows, like, where did the surfboard go? And I don't know if you've ever tried to undo those surf leashes, but the Velcro is pretty serious. Like, you've got to put some muscle into it to undo it. So for it to become undone on its own, let alone in a condition where there are no waves or any sort of force that could tug at it, was really, really bizarre. So I look down, I'm looking around for my board, and boom, it pops out of the water, nails me on my left eye. Now, if you're watching this episode as a video podcast, you see this picture of my black eye. Like, look how puffy it is. I can barely open my left eye. If you are just listening to this as an audio podcast, let me describe the size of this black guy. Like the radius is probably a little smaller than a coaster, but it's significant and it's puffy, very swollen. Now, at this time, I was the entertainment anchor on a morning show here in LA. Clearly, I could not go into work and be on TV for 5 hours with the giant black eye. So I send the picture of the black eye to my executive producer and tell him what happened. He thinks it's hysterical. So he makes it into a giant screen during the show that I'm missing. And my colleagues are all on air just having a field day about how my attempt at becoming a Cali girl failed royally. I'm watching this from home and laughing along because, it is kind of funny in a way. And lucky me, this was when the smoky eye makeup was in. So the next day, I still had the black eye really bad, but my makeup artist at work, did the other side just as purple and smoked it out. So if anything, I was in vogue with my injury. And once I'm at work, one of the producers is like, "Hey, Julie, did you go get that eye looked at?" And I'm thinking, no, the swelling will go, who cares? And she's like, "Girl, you are on air. You need to go get that checked out because God forbid if you cracked your orbital, it can heal in a way that your eyes droop." So I'm like, oh, hell no. So I make an appointment right after work and I go in and it was a private practice. I wish I could have remembered the doctor's name. Anywho, he was really nice and the energy was super calm and there was some smooth, earthy music playing. And that vibe changed real fast after they did the CT scan of my face. So the doctor walks in, it's nervous energy right away. He's kind of pacing, and then he just makes it kind of abrupt. He's like, "We saw something in your head when we were looking to see if anything was broken in your eye, and you should go see a neurologist right away. In fact, you should go right after this appointment." He hands me a little yellow manila envelope and inside is a CD-ROM and he's like, "You take this disc to the neurologist and best of luck." Once I got to the neurologist, I heard the words that you never want to hear. Whenever there's something wrong, you're like, "Oh, please, not the brain, not the brain, not the brain." And it was the brain. Yeah. Turns out based on the growth rate of that tumor, they can estimate how long it has been in my head. That brain tumor had been growing in my head for 12 years at that time. At that point, I've been doing a morning show for 12 years. Do I think the tumor and my TV career are linked? That's a story for another day. But for now, let's just acknowledge the obvious. Surfing saved my life. Okay, so I'm not religious, but I do believe in divine intervention. And that surfboard smacking me in the face was nothing short of the universe saying, "Girl, go get yourself some help. Go get checked out." That was the universe giving me the ultimate wake-up call. I'm so happy and grateful to report that all went okay with the brain surgery. Seriously, I'm the luckiest person alive. I did lose the right half of each eye because when they were removing the tumor, a lot of my optical nerves were tangled into the tumor. So all this to say, I don't really drive at night. I don't drive freeways. And, my son and my husband really love just jumping out from my peripheral vision because I don't see them until they're right in front and I scream and they think that's hilarious. So at least there's that. But on a more serious note, this whole journey has taught me that you don't have to fully see to have a clear vision. And in fact, the brain tumor sharpened my vision for life in a way that I could have never with a 20/20 vision, if that makes any sense. Okay, impatient folks, I see you rolling your eyes being like, "Okay, when is she going to get to the part about how she's a sponsored surfer?" Just chill. This is the part, okay? So my whole brain tumor journey played out on TV for hundreds of thousands of people to see. Remember, I was a morning show TV host. So, yeah, a lot of people saw that whole journey. One of those viewers was the fire captain of Ventura County, Steve Swindel. So, Steve watched as I threw that brain tumor in the trash. He watched as my body produced two miracles. Um, After I had the brain tumor removed, my neuro team told me that it would be really hard, if possible at all, to conceive because, your brain is the control center that triggers everything in your body, right? To build a human. And when the brain is already occupied healing itself, it cannot be taxed with commanding all the cues to build a baby. So, based on my age at the time and just how big the tumor was, it was the size of my fist. So, they were very pragmatic about it. They said, it's probably not going to happen. So I know a lot of folks out there feel like their children are miracles, and they all, like every child alive is a miracle. We are all actually miracles if you think about just like the complexity involved to make a human and operate a human. It's just mind blowing. But I genuinely, after being told that I probably won't have kids, to have two healthy kids, I really can say I have two miracles walking on this earth. Or as I like to call them, the two hearts that live outside my body. Steve Swindel ultimately retires from being fire captain of Ventura County and takes on a passion project by buying a boutique surfboard brand called Equinox Surfboards. 6 years from that fateful day where the surfboard hit my face, I decide to dabble back into the sport that saved my life. And immediately I get the stoke. Helping to fuel that stoke is COVID. Yeah, it's March 2020. Everyone is losing their mind because they're cooped up inside. Not me. I am at my church, AKA the ocean, getting after each wave. Actually, correction, I'm trying to get at the waves, but honestly, for the first 2 years, I looked like a drowning victim. Surfing is so freaking hard. So each day I go and try it again and try it again and try it again. In fact, I take on surfing like it's my job. In fact, it kind of became my job because I quit my job in April 2020. And so my primary focus really shifted from my TV job to surfing. Steve notices my surf content on Instagram and then drops me a DM. And I'll let him tell the story.
I was following Julie on Instagram, and I just had a sense of her when I would look at her photos. I don't know, but I just had a feeling, a vibe. I go, this is a really good person, somebody I think I would want to know and have ride my boards. And I have the feeling that it could be a good collaboration, but I thought, you know what? If I don't put it out there and ask her, the answer is going to be no. So why not try?
You guys, as much as I adore Steve, I thought I was being bamboozled. His last name is Swindel. For sure, I thought I was being swindled. Because nobody walks around offering you a free surfboard. That's like handing someone $1,000. That doesn't happen, especially if you are not even that good at surfing, like I am not that good at surfing. I'm just passionate and stoked about it, but doesn't necessarily mean I'm good, far from. But I keep our exchange courteous, right? So I'm just, answering his questions about what kind of surfboards I like and things like that. And never once am I actually expecting that this surfboard is going to actually be made. Lo and behold, a few weeks goes by and I get a DM from Steve saying, your board is ready. Where can we meet so I can give it to you? I'm like, what in the world? I was like, oh, this is when we meet and my body is discovered in an alleyway, chopped up into 64 different pieces. Because it's just too good to be true. This does not happen to people who barely know how to surf. So I'm thinking, okay, that's not true. I do know how to surf. I don't surf like most people who are sponsored. Okay. So Leif, my husband, is like, okay, I guess you should arrange a meeting, a very public meeting space, and I will come with you. So we decide to take him to lunch at Great White, one of my favorite restaurants. And I'm thinking if if the surfboard is indeed a real thing, taking him out to lunch is the least I can do. And if the surfboard is not a real thing, then this is weird, but it's okay because it's just lunch and my husband's there to protect me. And this is the part we all can cheer in unison, despite Steve's last name being Swindel. He was the real deal. And he handed me one of the most beautiful surfboards I've ever seen. And we named it the JC Firecracker. And it is such a fun board. From level 1 to 10, 10 being the most fun, it is an 11. So I'm squealing about the surfboard all throughout lunch, and we're wrapping up our meal. And Steve says, "There is one thing I have to ask of you." And I'm thinking, of course, this is too good to be true. Like this is when he's gonna ask something super indecent, or I don't know. I'm like, how could I have such a misread on this person? Because throughout lunch, he just seemed like such a warm, wise surfer who just wants to spread the stoke. And so that's why he's just like, I don't know, gifting me this board. Of course, that's such a foolish thing to think. He's going to ask me like the most crazy thing. Leif's eyes widen. My eyes widen. There's like this long pregnant pause. And we're like, sure, Steve, like ask away. And Steve says, "So Julie, I have a handful of team riders who represent my surfboards. And being a team rider for me is very low commitment. I make you 2 to 3 boards a year, and all you have to do is just ride them, enjoy them, spread the stoke, and maybe take a picture with the board, a few times a year and send it to me." At this point, I'm still not following because, like I said, just because I really love surfing doesn't mean I'm good at it. Like, on my best day, someone would maybe describe me as like beginner intermediate. But I'm nowhere near team rider, aka sponsored surfer level. But here's what I do have. I have an incredible comeback story. So this past year, I've had the fortune of coaching 6 women and teaching a workshop on the power of story, and also just consulting in general about the power of your story. And this is such a perfect example of this. I just never knew how my story was going to serve as so many other people's survival guide, right? Like not a week goes by where I don't hear from dozens of people who are going through some sort of medical scare. And that's why, even though it's sometimes uncomfortable to share so much, I do. Because I know that when I share and live out loud and share my story, it's somehow serving as someone else's survival guide. And it cuts both ways. Like I've heard other people share their story, and I've used it to serve me during hard times. My survival story landed in Steve's heart, not my surfing. So that is how I became a sponsored surfer in my 40s. And I'll let Steve finish out the episode. Here's what he had to say about our partnership.
Julie is a survivor. She went through a pretty hairy experience in her life, which gave her a wonderful perspective on the rest of her life. I think if anybody can take away anything from her is that don't stop living, don't give up. And as far as the collaboration between she and I can't even begin to tell you how blessed I feel to have her as part of my team. She is my mega diamond golden ring.
I'm not crying, you're crying. All right, that completes this episode, my first audio podcast / video podcast episode. Thanks for being here. And remember, friends, you can't stop the waves, so you might as well learn how to surf. But for now, you know what to do. Hook a homegirl up. Hit subscribe and extra credit points if you leave a review. Only if it's positive. Love you.